Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
We are live, and it is Monday, March the 6th. This is WagerTalk Today, WagerTalk TV. It is the month of March, the first Monday in March. 1 week from today, we will be talking about the full NCAA bracket. So this is a great week to talk some college hoops, some NBA here, and the NHL, of course, on WagerTalk Today. We're going to do so as a Prez free zone. A lot of March is going to be a Prez free zone, and that's because Prez is on assignment. He is inching his way towards Houston, Texas for 4 weeks from now for the national championship game. Teddy covers. Maybe he'll stop by and say hi to you on the way. I am Steve Merrill filling in for the Prez, and we have a loaded episode today. Teddy covers, my co-host as always. Teddy, who we had on today on Monday, March the 6th?
Yeah, don't be waiting for the big dance before you get involved in college hoops. This week, in my opinion, the best week of the year for college basketball bettors. We're going to break some down right off the top with Marco D'Angelo. He's going to break down BYU and St. Mary's tonight. He's going to touch on a little NBA as well, the Hawks and the Heat. In Bettors Learn, I'm going to talk about the key to conference championship games, namely something I missed yesterday. And, of course, Bryan Leonard is going to join us next. He's going to talk NHL, the Oilers and the Sabres, as well as the Capitals and the Kings. My big game breakdown. We're going to go to the Motor City and talk about the Pistons and the Blazers. And, of course, Carmine Bianco to close out the show. He's got a pair of NHL props for us, one in the Senators Blackhawks game, one in the Flames and Stars game. So lots of NHL, lots of college hoops, some NBA as well. And obviously the little dances, 15 of them starting this week. They're going to be a whole lot of fun to handicap, and there's money to be made for those who are paying attention. Steve, let's get
question. Yeah, no question about it. And speaking of one of those mid to major little dances, let's bring in Marco D'Angelo because he's going to talk about probably the best of those mid-majors. I guess we could call the West Coast Conference, Marco, a mid-major. I mean, they're not considered, ACC, Big East, Big 12, Big 10. But, two of the best teams in the country are still in this conference. And I want to talk to you about the semifinals tonight. We have Gonzaga, San Francisco in the other game. But we also have, Marco, BYU and St. Mary's. And, of course, Gonzaga and St. Mary's most likely on a collision course, most people think, to play in the finals. We'll see if that happens. They've played twice this year. They've split out. But, Marco, welcome to the show, and let's dive right in. What are your thoughts on this BYU St. Mary's game tonight on Monday?
Well, I can tell you, if it goes as planned and we get those two teams tomorrow, that'll be the toughest ticket to get here in Vegas this week. And we've got a lot of college basketball in Vegas. This has become a mecca of conference tournament week. You have this one. You've got the Mountain West Conference over at the Thomas and Mack. You've got Pac-12 at T-Mobile, and you even got the Big West at the Dollar Loan Center here in Vegas. But trust me, this is the toughest ticket to get tomorrow night, the championship game, because it will be Gonzaga and St. Mary's by most people's opinion. Now, with that said, I'm going to look at tonight's game, and I'm going to go a little contrary. Now, I know if you look at this game on the surface and you look at just the head-to-head meetings, BYU has played them tough. But everybody expects these two to move on. And one thing, and I don't know, maybe Teddy will comment at the end about this statement I'm going to say, one of the angles that I generally do like in conference tournament action, and it's based on public perception. Most people feel that the teams that have the bye have a huge advantage over the teams that play. I don't feel that way when the teams that had the bye are making their first start in the conference tournament. Why? Well, you're playing in a venue, although they come here every year, the turnover in college basketball. Where they're playing at the Orleans Arena is not a true basketball arena. So your sight lines are a little bit different. You don't have the, not that Gonzaga or St. Mary's should have any butterflies, but still the other team's got a game under their belt. The market thinks it's a huge advantage. You generally get line value. And I think there's line value tonight in the St. Mary's game because if you look, they just played a couple weeks ago at St. Mary's. The line was 9.5 at St. Mary's, and it was another tight game between BYU and St. Mary's. They're getting 7 tonight on a neutral court. And St. Mary's, you got a fine line between rust and rest. They haven't played since the 25th. And oh, by the way, that 25th game, that was against Gonzaga. That was the big showdown game between those two. And they haven't had what I like to say the buffer game since then. We talk about sometimes losing the same game twice. Well, they've had enough time in between. I don't think that's a big issue, but I would have rather them have a game since that one, like Gonzaga has. They scheduled a patsy at the end of the season, but at least it was still, they got a game under their belt after that big one. I'm going to take BYU to keep this one close tonight. I do think St. Mary's will find a way to advance and get us that matchup we want tomorrow. But they've been reading the clippings for the past few days about this tournament. Everybody's waiting for tomorrow night, and I'm taking BYU plus the points.
So here's my question for you about BYU. All right, BYU this year has been kind of I'm not going to say a one-way team for me, but when they step up in class, I've been reluctant to back the Cougars. Here's why. Really young BYU team. We know they're leaving the Mountain West for the Big 12 next year. They're not going to get the calls in this tournament or in this game. As a result, the conference not happy with BYU. And they're so young. It has been, we're not calling it a rebuilding season, but it's been a rebuilding season for the Cougs. Now stepping up in class against an elite defensive team who tested them twice this year on a neutral floor. Isn't this a time for the class to shine? I mean, and I know we like teams that have played on this floor. BYU, now their third game in 4 days. Is that a concern for you, either?
Generally, that, playing that third game, but you know what? This tournament it's different than the other ones, Teddy. We have the double bye for St. Mary's and Gonzaga, but they have the day off yesterday. So BYU did get a day's rest. That's different than playing 3 straight games and having, to play. I kind of think negates that a little bit. And you are correct in your statement about the calls. I don't think I don't know that there was a memo sent, but I'm sure there was, behind closed doors. Hey, we don't want BYU in the championship. I can understand that one as they're going out the door. So I'll give you that one, but I will dispute the young team. We're at game number, 33 of the season. Okay. Game number 34. At this point in time, they're not young anymore. Okay. They've had a full season under their belt. So I'll give you one, but I won't give you the other one. I don't think they're inexperienced anymore.
Marco D'Angelo is saying a little bit of a contrarian call with BYU as a 6.5 point dog. It's actually 7 now. It was 6.5 earlier, 7 now across the board. That game goes tonight on Monday, 9:00 Eastern. It's the first of the 2 semifinals in Las Vegas at the Orleans Arena. And once again, Gonzaga about a 14-point favorite in the second game against San Fran. So that's a pretty much a lock. And then we should have maybe St. Mary's, but Marco says BYU could be a live dog in that game. We'll see if it plays out. I love the double bye, by the way, and you'll notice these smaller conferences do this because they want to try to get their power teams into the mix, obviously. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I also like the fact that it rewards a better regular season. In my home conference, the Colonial has 13 teams this year, really bottom week. They did a double bye with the top 4, and so far it's working out pretty well. I believe all 4 are up there. I'm not sure Wilmington was one of the 4. The other 3 are definitely the top 3 seeds are still alive in the semis there as well. Marco, let's transition over to the NBA. And by the way, more college basketball talk at 2:00 Eastern today here on WagerTalk TV, the college basketball happy hour tip-off show. And then, of course, 4:15 Eastern every weekday, we have the NBA show. And one of the better games tonight, I think, is a 2 teams vying for the playoffs in the East. Atlanta Hawks, Miami Heat. Currently, Miami is a slight home favorite. At open 3, it's holding steady at -3. Total has gone up a bit, Marco, from 227 up to 229. This game's at 7:30 Eastern tonight on Monday. Marco, who do you like between the Hawks and the Heat?
Well, this is one of those second of back-to-backs at the same location, which I'll go on the record. I don't like these at all. Okay. I wish the NBA would do away with them, but I get it. Travel, they're trying to make things easier. But the knee jerk reaction with this is going to be, hey, Atlanta lost the first one. They're not going to lose both of them. Take Atlanta in the revenge game tonight. And if you look at Miami, they're just 2-6 straight up in their last 8 games, 2-2 the last 4. But it's got to be noted that if you look at that 8-game stretch, they played 4 straight on the road. The 4 games that they played at home, they played one of them against Denver, who's one of the best teams in the West. Then they played Philadelphia, the 3rd best team in the East. And then they played the New York Knicks, who right now is the hottest team in the NBA. So when you look at what Miami's done, yeah, the 2-6 record doesn't look good, but if you dig deeper, it doesn't look as bad as it is. And I think they're about to go on a run here. As I said, 2-2 in the last 4. Now I look at this Atlanta team, they're 5-4 the last 9 games, but 7 of the 9 were at home, and only 2 were against what I would consider elite teams in the NBA, New York and Cleveland. And they played Phoenix in there, but that was at the beginning of that 9-game stretch, well before Kevin Durant showed up in Phoenix. So I think that these are 2 teams that look like they might be going in opposite directions, but really Miami got the first game. I expect them to get the second game as well. And if you look at Atlanta, they've not been a good road underdog the last 2 seasons. They're 17-32 against the spread as a road underdog. And for Atlanta, this is going to be their 3rd game in 4 nights. Last 2 seasons, they're just 12-25 in that situation. I think the market's down on Miami at the moment. I'm going to take advantage of a soft market and grab Miami and go ahead and lay the 3 with them tonight to sweep the 2-game back-to-back at home.
So here's the question, Marco. I've got Miami off a win this year. They've won 34 previous games. I have them as 10-point spread covers off a win. 10, 22, and 1, and then we'll see what happens tonight. So not just money losers, big money losers. Atlanta off a loss. I got them 6-2 against the spread their last 8. I got them winning for the season. I got them winning on the road for the season off a loss against the spread. So you have one team that has not just failed once or twice. They failed all year in this role. And the other team, which is the knee-jerk, you say take Atlanta here, but the numbers kind of show. Take Atlanta here. Respond.
Respond would be, how many of those that you mentioned were playing the same team in back-to-back games?
I don't know. I'll look it up. That's the issue here.
I'm sure it wasn't many. I think that makes it a little different handicapping dynamic, playing the same team back to back, and playing a team that you're going to have to probably deal with down the road again. So it's one of those ones where I just think Miami right now. You like to say the term, buy on teams, sell on teams. I think Miami is about to go on a bit of a run, and I think we're getting them at the low point.
It is worth noting that the last time they played a back-to-back against someone, they had Milwaukee at home in back-to-back games. They won the first, and they blew them out in the second meeting. So that certainly does point towards Marco's point.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that meeting yesterday. Well, that most recent meeting on Friday, or Saturday rather, I guess, Saturday, March 4th, 226 was the final score, and it was 226.5 was the closing total in many spots. So it was basically spot on that over-under. And once again, we saw them open this total 227, but it has been bet up, as I said, to 229. So a little bit of movement on the total. The side remains at 3 as it was last night. Marco, big time of year here in March. You've had a great 20 to 23, to say the least. What else you got going on at WagerTalk.com?
Well, today, as I do so often on Mondays, I put all my plays in one package. We got all the college plays tonight up in one package for $9. I've got one play loaded already, and it's not one of the ones that I gave out already here on the show. And by the way, guys, the show 29 and 13 run here on the show. So we've had some pretty good success with our show plays, but you can pick up all my college plays today. I will add throughout the day, just $9, $9 Monday at WagerTalk.
Yeah, Marco's on a nice run, 113-69 overall run, I believe, and it continues with $9 Monday. I can't believe I forgot to mention $9 Monday, Teddy. This is the longest we've ever gone on a Monday show without mentioning that. So Marco wins Thank you, Marco D'Angelo. He's been red hot all of calendar year 2023, and it continues with $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, we talked already a little bit about the conference tournaments. We're going to bring Bryan Leonard on in a moment. But before we do so, I want to go a little bit deeper into your thoughts this week with conference tournament action. A little bit of a light card on Monday and Tuesday, picks up on Wednesday. And then, of course, Thursday and Friday are just slammed, as it will be next week with the NCAA tournament. What are your thoughts? How do you approach this week in college hoops? I know one thing we've talked about is that these lines are going to be very sharp. The odds makers, the statisticians, they all have couple months of head-to-head common opponents with all this conference play. And my first advice, I'm sure you'll touch on it, would be very careful with line value. Shop around. Those extra half points could be more valuable than ever.
Oh, no, that wasn't my point at all. That's not what I learned this week. I knew that already. We want to talk about stuff that I just learned. And I had a good weekend in the NBA. I had a crappy weekend in college hoops. And I missed one badly yesterday. And it was 100% my own fault. It probably started the night before because I stayed up to watch Santa Clara lose in double overtime, a game that ended after midnight Pacific time, after 3 a.m. on the East Coast, for those of you who are watching it. Frustrating loss. And it definitely, I don't stay up that late, and affected my prep yesterday morning. Yesterday morning, I missed bad. I made a mistake, and I'm not going to make it again. I hate relearning a lesson I should already know by losing money for myself and my clients. I thought Bradley was the best team in the Missouri Valley all year. I thought Drake was far more inconsistent. I didn't think the line was priced at Pick'em. And my impression from watching these two teams, knowing them all year, Bradley's a better team. I stayed up too late the night before watching a stupid double overtime game. I probably didn't do the due diligence I should have. Bradley 8-man rotation. They played a tough game against Northern Iowa. They played a tough game and won in the last second foul shots versus Indiana State after missing the three-pointer that would have won the game. Drake had it much easier. They pulled away from Murray State in the second half and then cruised versus Southern Illinois. Neither games were intense down the stretch. Who was fresher on Sunday? It wasn't close. I turned the game on once. I turned it off a minute later. Drake was up by 20 before halftime. It was done deal. That was bad handicapping on my part. You can say what you want about who's the better team. And if these teams met 10 times, what would happen? Well, I think Bradley would win more than their fair share. But when it comes to the championship game, when teams been playing 2 games, 2 nights, 3 games, 3 nights, 4 games, 4 nights, the number one factor, the most important factor, how fresh these teams are. Bradley wasn't fresh yesterday. It showed early. It showed often. They got blown out. It's a mistake. Something I should know better. We'll pay more attention to that this time around. Steve?
Well, I talk a lot about tempo this time of year also. And I think that's something else, a team that's going to run and gun, for 2 or 3 days. I'm not necessarily talking about that game in particular, but, there's different makeups of teams as well. And I think certain, half-court shutdown defensive teams are better equipped to play 2 or 3 or 4 straight days than a team that has to run and gun, So we'll see that coming up this week in a lot of the bigger Power 5 conference tournaments. It's something to keep an eye on. One thing I want to touch on real quick, I hinted on this earlier about how the double bye is into more of these tournaments now, especially the mid-majors, and how the Colonial, my home conference, has 13 teams, a lot of new teams. So they had to do basically really kind of crazy what they did, Teddy. They had the top 4 seeds get a double bye. The 12th and 13th team had to play an extra game on Friday. And then the other 8 teams, including that winner, plays the other 7. And then they play. So anyway, really interesting to watch how the CAA has played out just from a big picture standpoint. 2 of the worst teams in the country, Monmouth and Hampton, play on Friday. Meaningless game. I think it was like a 2-point line. Monmouth, who was the last place team in the 13, wins, 100 to 64. All right. That's insane. I saw both those teams play this year. They're terrible teams. Monmouth was, when I saw them play William Mary last week in the final home game of the regular season, they were 353rd out of 363 in offensive efficiency in the Ken Poms. And they put up 100 points in a play-in game. That's insane. Of course, they get blown out in the next game, or they lose the next game. But bigger picture, the 4 teams with a double bye yesterday on Sunday all won and covered. Pretty big wins. The teams they played all won easily on Saturday. William and Mary won by 22 in a basic pick'em game. They lost by 48 yesterday. They only scored 46. Stony Brook, I believe, some of these other results were insane. Drexel beat that Monmouth team by 19. They lose yesterday. Stony Brook wins by 15. They get blown out by 22. So once again, you would look at Saturday and be like, wow, these ugly underdogs have some momentum coming in. And those rested teams just throttled them yesterday, went 4-0 straight up in ATS. So just something to keep an eye on. It doesn't always work that way. But once again, you and I have talked about this. These ugly teams that have nothing to play for in February can often get a spark for one game, maybe two game, but they usually come back down to earth when they play the better team. And we have definitely seen that this week. And the CAA was a case study, in my opinion. We'll see how it continues the next couple nights in college hoops. Bryan Leonard or Teddy, any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Just a brief follow on that. And this is a mantra that I've used across sports, but it's so true when it comes to conference tournament action. All right. You're losing teams. When a team is done, they're done. They might have gotten their win, but they're done. We use this in the NBA playoffs a lot. I love it when a team uses everything they have to go up 2-1 in a series. And the opposing team is going to win the last three games of that series. When a team is done, they're done. And you see that in conference tournament action a fair bit, even in a situation where a team supposedly has momentum.
Yeah, and I think also they just don't have the horsepower to do it again. It's like, oh, they're hot, but they're not good still. And and obviously the results yesterday, at least in the CA, is just textbook example of that. So bettors, dig in, look at the past histories of these tournaments. You'll see what works and what doesn't work, and you'll learn how to handicap these like Teddy and I have over 25 plus years. And Bryan Leonard, I know you do extremely well in college hoops also. You've learned how to handicap these. But we've talked a lot of basketball today. So we want to talk a little hockey with Bryan Leonard, who's also a hockey expert out there in Vegas and a Knights fan, along with Marco D'Angelo. And Bryan, welcome to the show here on $9 Monday, WagerTalk.com, and of course, WagerTalk TV. We are live every Monday through Friday at noon Eastern doing this show. We talk basketball and hockey a lot. Baseball, by the way, guys, around the corner. I know Teddy and Bryan are digging into some baseball. Teddy is braving the elements to watch MLB in Vegas, and Bryan's always a spring training junkie. But Bryan, let's focus on some hockey. You got your hockey hat on. Give us a game here tonight, maybe a high scoring game. What's something you look at NHL? You'll see a lot of goals this evening on Monday.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something about the conference action. Been living in Vegas the last 24 years, and they always have a lot of conferences out here playing their tournaments. Every time I go to one of those, one team looks good, and then the next game, another team looks good, and then they play, and then it's just the opposite or whatever. So you don't learn anything by watching them in person, which is why I always say when people watch a lot of sports on TV, I said, how many times have you seen that team play? Well, once or twice. Once or twice tells you nothing, unless it's your local team, somebody you watch a lot of times. Like you for William & Mary, you know William & Mary like the back of your hand. You know everything about them. But if one team looks good one night, the next night they got to play somebody else in these tournaments, chances are you're going to see some regression. And we see that a lot here in Las Vegas. Getting back to the hockey, I'm going to make what is clearly an obvious play. I'm looking at the Edmonton-Buffalo game. You got two teams, two of the highest scoring teams in the NHL, two lousy defenses, two teams with bad goaltending for the most part, and they're playing a non-conference game. So this has the least amount of importance to them on the season. We like to look at that when we're looking at the NFL. Your divisional games are much more important than your conference games than your non-conference games. So whenever I can see two teams that do a lot of scoring going up against each other in a non-conference game, I'm looking to play the over. And if you take a look at the way these two teams are playing as of late, Edmonton, the last 12 games, have seen combined scores of 7 or more in 10 of those. Out of those 12 games, they've scored 105 goals total between the two teams, averaging 8.75 goals per contest. Buffalo at home is an especially high-scoring team. Their last 5 home games have been points totaled of 9, 9, 11, 8, and 8, all higher than today's number of 7. I think this line is going to hit 7.5 as the day goes on. We've seen in the past, and Ralph Michaels made a chart, teams that have a total of 7 tend to go under. I don't see how this game goes under the way these two teams are playing right now. With all the scoring they're doing, history shows that these two teams have gone under. But these two teams right now, the way they're playing, I like the over here. I'll play this over the 7. I got it minus 120 last night. It's still good up to maybe minus 135. Yeah, looking for the obvious shootout here.
I'm excited because I have a follow-up question for this. Usually I just have to move on to the next game. But, Bri, you intrigued me with a question. And this is a general question about the NHL. Because I was just looking at some consensus. And you're like, this is the most obvious play on the board. And I'm looking at the consensus numbers. And it looks like every bet is on the over. And I just checked a couple of different consensus places. And every bet is on, it's the number one over that everyone's looking at in the NHL tonight. In some sports, we worry a lot about consensus in the public, and other sports we don't worry about it as much. Do you worry in the NHL about fading the public, being on the same side as everyone else, or is that a sport where playing contrarian isn't necessarily the thing you want to do?
Yeah, I have no problem playing contrarian in the NHL. I always say that this is the most lucky sport there are out of any sport. You watch a game, and there was a game the other day, I think one team had a 20-4 shots on goal advantage in the first period. We're down 1-0. This is a sport in which one team can dominate and not have a lead. And you see it many times. They'll have shots, great passes, and it'll be bounce over the stick of the player. It's just there's more luck in this sport than any. So I'm always looking to play underdogs if I can in this. But sometimes you have domination, and there's a lot of domination in the NHL right now because teams have already given up on the season, whereas others are out there trying to play for whatever they can and try to make the playoffs. So yes, it's a situation where I always take that into account. But every game you have to treat it a little bit differently. But yeah, I'm never happy being on the same side as everybody else. But if I think the line is going to go up to a higher number and we can get the lower number, especially on the number 7, I think that's the way to look at it.
It's Bryan Leonard, and one thing Ralph also says, though, is that these totals are high for a reason in most sports, NBA, hockey, whatever. So that's another way to look at the over here is, yes, maybe some of the unders hit a 7, but they're also high for a reason because these are two games, two teams that should have a shootout tonight in the NHL. Bryan Leonard talking NHL hockey with us, but Bryan also knows basketball, and he has a strong NBA best bet for $9 Monday right now at WagerTalk.com. And Bryan, you and Teddy Covers will both be back at 4:15 Eastern today for the NBA tip-off show here on Wager Talk TV. And don't forget, more college hoops talk also in a couple hours at 2 o'clock Eastern. I'll be on the college basketball show with Tony Finn and Adam Trigger. We could say Tony Trigger and Steve Merrill will be on the college basketball show at 2 o'clock Eastern here on Monday as well. Let's keep talking some NHL, though, with you, Bryan. My former Washington Capitals having a rough season. Is there a sign of life still here that they've won 3 of their last 4? Now they're a good-sized dog at L.A., a late-night game, Capitals-Kings. Bryan, what are you doing with this one tonight?
Yeah, when Ovechkin was out of the lineup, they couldn't score at all. Now that he's back, they've been scoring like crazy. Problem is, I think this is the best team that they played, at least at home. So I'm really worried about Washington here. I think they regress a little bit tonight. Actually, I sent this over last night at 160. It was 160. Now I'm seeing down like in the 140 range. So somebody's betting Washington. They're seeing value on Washington, but I'm not. The Kings have been very good at home. They have not lost a home game since January 19th. Here we are in March. They haven't played on the road yet in March. Here we are the 6th. They don't play again until I think 2 or 3 days from now. They go to Colorado for one game. Then they come back home again. So they're in a stretch of 11 of 12 games at home. They're very rested, playing a team in Washington that's starting to play a little bit better with their best player back in the lineup. But the Kings have been terrific at home all year. I'm very surprised this line's been bet down. I used it as a free play earlier for my clients, but I'll probably end up using it as a play, an actual play for clients, now that the line has gone down a little bit. Got teams very good at home against a team playing their last game on a road trip, 4-game road trip. Give me the Kings over Washington here.
Bryan says, take a look at the LA Kings as modest home favorites against the Washington Capitals. Bri, $9 Monday over at WagerTalk.com. What do you have available for the clients?
Well, I've got my best NHL total. You already have it. Save yourself $9. But I do have a team total up in the NBA today. NBA has been very good all season long for us, very consistent. I don't have a lot of NBA plays, but when I do, they've been very good. And I just can't wait for the NBA playoffs because I know you guys have always done well in that regard. And that's the best, to me, the best handicapping you can do in the NBA because you know everybody's going to be playing in the playoffs. You know the revenge because they just played each other the game before. To me, that's the easiest NBA way to handicap is in the NBA playoffs. Teddy's an NBA expert. He could probably join me on that and agree with it. So keep in mind for the NBA playoffs coming up, guys. I'm sure we'll have some packages for our clients. So we should be able to make really good money once we get to the postseason.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the NBA playoffs, I've always said, might be my desert island handicap if I had to pick one sport once a year to make some money at. Consistently works year after year. And Brian, Teddy, and myself will all be looking forward to the NBA playoffs. And Brian and Teddy will be talking more NBA at 4:15 Eastern today on Monday. Check out the NBA tip-off show along with the prop master, Andy Lang. I believe Megan Payton will be in there as well. 4:15 Eastern every Monday through Friday here. NBA Talk, and Brian and Teddy will be on today on Monday. All right, Teddy, speaking of the NBA, let's get a quick commercial break. 30 seconds. We'll come right back. You've got some NBA for a big game breakdown Teddy covers.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. When all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's go to the NBA on Monday night and take a look at the Pistons and the Blazers. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen. Let's call Portland -6. There are some -5.5s available for those with options who can line shop. Total sitting 229.5 as we speak. And I want to talk about capping bottom feeders in the NBA down the stretch. Teams that are chasing the number one pick, not a playoff spot. And my handicap for these bottom feeders is real simple. Opposing teams that come in with a sense of urgency will beat them. Teams without a sense of urgency can lose, can be tested, but teams that come in with a sense of urgency are bet on in March against bottom feeders. Relatively simple handicap. And yes, it is the second of back-to-backs for Portland. But look at this quote from Damian Lillard. Quote, after the win yesterday, we had to have this one. We've got 18 games left now. Everyone else is playing with a sense of urgency because they know the race is tight. Lose one and you can drop 3 spots. Win a couple, you can really make up some ground. There's urgency for Portland right now. Chauncey Billups, a legend in Detroit, head coach. That's a little extra juice to the game on the second of back-to-backs against a bottom feeder. Jeremy Grant, former Piston, returning home. The Pistons could have kept him, built a franchise around him. Instead, he ended up in Portland after this season. He had a big game against Detroit the first time these two teams met, and that was a 29-point Blazers victory. The Pistons are 4-19 straight up in their last 23. They've lost 7 straight. Last time out against Cleveland, 24 turnovers. Really ugly basketball. And Dwayne Casey basically sat as starting front court. That's what you're going to see from teams like Detroit at this stage of the campaign. Even the 4 wins during this 23-game span have been all dicey. You know, only 5 losses by less than 6 points, 14 losses by 6 points or more. Portland cares. Detroit's struggling. Detroit's got injuries, guys coming in and out of their lineup. Later, don't play it. Blazers -6 for this bet. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
You know, it's interesting, Teddy. I looked this up recently because I've been talking about the Rockets on the NBA tip-off show, you know, about how I think they're definitely trying not to win, or they don't care about winning. Tillman just put in an offer for the Commanders, you know, and he's basically partying after these Rocket losses. And I said, well, they only have at best a 25% chance. I was actually wrong. That was about 5 years ago. Since 2019, the best chance you have is now 14%, I believe, to get the number one pick. So it's even lower. Yet the last 3 seasons, 140 out of a 1,000 chance. Those have been the three teams who've gotten the number one pick, the T-Wolves, the Pistons, and the Magic. So it has happened, but it's still like, 5 out of 6 chance you won't get it. So it's interesting, like you're saying, these teams aren't trying, but I also think it's just a disconnect. They know they're not going anywhere. We talked about that once again in February with losing conference teams, right? They got nothing to play for until the tournament. These NBA guys have nothing to play for the rest of the year. Teddy, as far as totals, I sometimes look for some overs when we have two bad teams playing. Is that something that catches your attention? I know a lot of that's been priced out of the market in recent years, especially this season.
Yeah, I'm not real excited about playing Blazers games under the total. So,
right, I got you.
If I was going to put side and total together on this one, it would not be Portland and under. It would be Portland and over. But, I mean, Detroit's offense is a little bit disjointed right now. Again, they're shuttling players in and out of the lineup all the time. And when you have an offense that doesn't play with pace and is turning the ball over and disjointed, those aren't teams I'm running to the window to play overs with.
Yeah, that game once again at 7:00 Eastern tonight. Blazers at Pistons. Portland open 5.5 up to 6 across the board. In most spots, as Teddy said, a few 5.5 still out there. So shop around. Totals actually dropped a point, 230.5 down to 229.5. We'll have more NBA talk 4:15 Eastern today on Monday. College basketball show at 2:00 Eastern here on Monday as well. And don't forget, it's $9 Monday. WagerTalk.com. And one thing I haven't mentioned, I do have a college basketball contest up this week. It's live right now on my page. Pick enough games correct, you're going up to a full year $2,000 value of best bets. That's on my page right now, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. So there's a little basketball talk, but let's get back to some NHL talk with another hockey expert and a Canadian, so it's in his blood, Carmine Bianco, resident hockey expert at WagerTalk.com, an all-around great guy. Carm, looking forward to seeing you again on August 19th, Saturday, August 19th in Las Vegas. At the meet and greet. Teddy covers, myself, Steve Merrill, we will all be there as well. That will not be a Prez free zone, so advance warning, but it's still a good reason to come. Today is a Prez free zone, though, so we need a Canadian on the show, Carm, and you fit the bill. Brian just talked about a couple games from a side and total perspective, but Carm, I know you've been crushing it with NHL props. In fact, I think you're number one this year at WagerTalk.com on shot props, 77 and 47 on the year, so I wanted to have you on to talk some of those. Let us know what you look at. I guess just give us a quick look at what you look at and then maybe an example of a prop or two tonight.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on. You guys are happy it's a Prez free zone for a little while for you guys. But the player props have gone well. And, I talk about it on Puck Time pretty much every morning that I key in on just fading certain teams and taking players in certain situations. There are teams, I don't want to play shot props against teams that don't allow a lot of shots on goal because it's very tough. And you look at especially in the East, I think 5 of the best 7 teams come from the East in Carolina, the New Jersey Devils, Toronto, the Rangers, Boston. But you want to play shot props if you can get them, and books are finally starting to kind of shy away from all these shot props on teams that are playing the Anaheim Ducks, who allow 39.41 shots per game, which is a lot more than 25. That's 25.98 that Carolina obviously allows. Arizona's right up there at 35.56, but it shows you how bad the Anaheim Ducks are. That there is a gap of almost 5 shots on goal allowed per game. And then it's just keying in on certain players who consistently hit this number. I don't play shot props, or very rarely play a shot prop where the VIG is higher than minus 140, because it can skew that number. You can hit 70%, but if you're laying like minus 180, how much are you really making at the end of the day, percentage wise? So most of mine are in that minus 125 to minus 140 range, and it's worked thus far. Perfect example is we'll look at the Ottawa-Chicago game tonight. The one player that I'm looking at in this one is Drake Batherson. His shot total is at 2.5, minus 140. They're playing Chicago, who is the 4th worst team. They're 28 of 32. They allow 33.73 shots per game. But over the last 5 games, that number's been elevated. And this is sort of coincides with them selling off pieces of their team or trading away prior to the trade deadline. But they're allowing almost 737 shots on goal per game after getting rid of Kane and after getting rid of Max Domi. So they've gotten rid of some players. And Batherson, since moving to the second line with DeBrincat and Pinto, has really excelled. He has hit his number in 9 of the last 12 games. He's gone over the total. So if you're and if you look at it, when he's playing a Western Conference team, and you've got to break these down because the Eastern Conference teams play much more better defensively. I think it's a much more wide open game in the Western Conference. He's 19-7 versus Western Conference teams. And even at a minus 140 risk, if you bet each and every one of them, you're up 9.5 units over the course of the season. So I like his nodal. Ottawa's in a playoff race. They've won 5 in a row. He's gone over the total in 4 of his last 5. I'm taking him tonight at minus 140 over 2.5 shots.
Drake Batherson over 2.5 shots, minus 140 in the Senators and the Blackhawks game this evening. Let's talk about the Flames and the Stars. You have another prop you want to talk about with Tyler Toffoli. What are we going to do with him and his shots on goal?
Yeah, Teddy, this is a crazy one because I just don't understand why the books continue to have the price that they do on Tyler Toffoli. I think everyone from Andrew to Andy Lang have been taking advantage of the Tyler Toffoli props. Over 2.5, minus 140 again. Now, he stayed under the last couple of games. He stayed under that total, and this has been his standard number at 2.5. But I think it affords us the opportunity to now jump on board for him to go over the number tonight against Dallas. He did go over the total prior. You look at his stats the last 20 games, he has gone over the total in 17 of 20. He's 17-3, and that includes the last 2 staying under. So prior to those, he was on a 17-1 run. And just in 2023 alone, he is 20-5 in the 25 games in this new year. And anytime you can get a large sampling, hitting at 80%, where you're taking even at minus 140, you're going to make money. Risking 140, you're up 13 units betting Tyler Toffoli in 2023. And it's, again, I'm a risk adverse person. I don't lay a lot of, a juice. I have that juice tolerance. I don't lay the big numbers. So taking 140 and a guy who's hitting 80%, you're going to make money. And it's just sort of rinse and repeat and just keep taking them until they let you down. And then you just jump off that train.
Carmine Bianco, NHL expert, WagerTalk.com. And Carm, you've been red hot in hockey. I mentioned 77 and 47 on these shot props alone, number one at WagerTalk.com. You've also got a free team total. Go to his page right now for an additional free NHL play, a team total for Monday. It's also $9 Monday. You've got a 3-pack up there for $9. And more importantly, Carm, you got a great special for the rest of the NHL season, just $3.19. That includes all of the playoffs and the Stanley Cup. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we've still got 39 days of the NHL regular season. It ends on April the 14th. And then the playoffs, obviously, a couple days later will kick in. That price is $3.19. But as part of a special for today's show and good until Friday, you can get another $50 off that $3.19 by using code NHL50. So that was just created a little while ago by our fantastic staff in Detroit. NHL50 to get another $50 off.
Not a bad reason to get the rest of the NHL season from Carmine Bianco right now at WagerTalk.com. And Carm, thanks for joining us. Check out Puck Time at 11 a.m. Eastern here on the network. Don't forget, Teddy will be back at 4 o'clock Eastern today for the NBA Tip-Off Show. I'll be back in about an hour at 2 o'clock Eastern to talk college hoops here. So a lot of content on Wager Talk TV. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and hit that bell for instant alerts when these shows and all videos go live. Don't forget also you can download the Wager Talk TV app for your favorite mobile device. Give us a thumbs up, a like here, and leave us some comments below. Let us know your thoughts on this week in conference tournament action in college basketball, some play on and play against teams. And by the way, I mentioned my college basketball contest. The way it works, I have a bunch of questions about Selection Sunday, so you can do it anytime this week. Go to my page right now. One of them I put up this past week, Teddy, was will North Carolina make the tournament? It was about a 50-50 prop when I put it up. I don't want to say what the odds are now because I don't want to give away the contest selection, but it's a little less or a little bit more maybe than 50-50. You have to do your own research. But it's a fun contest, completely free to enter. you pick enough right, you went up to a full year anywhere from 1 day to a full year, 365 days of my best bets for free. Check that out right now. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Teddy, $9 Monday. I know you're going to have some strong best bets tonight for $9 Monday, and I look forward to doing the show again with you tomorrow on $2 Tuesday for a select capper. We'll have more information on that tomorrow. In the meantime, Teddy Covers, take us home.
Yeah, I'll be posting soon after the show. Didn't get it done before the show today. We're jamming to get everything ready for this. But obviously, selections will be posted in the not too distant future. Thank you so much for taking time into your busy day to spend with us here on Wager Talk today. As Steve said, we'll do it again tomorrow and every day this week, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and tomorrow's show, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. When all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.